Hello, welcome to a new episode of Psicoactivo. This is my fourth consecutive video on 4 consecutive days. I had some help after the video that I released yesterday. A friend of mine, really good friend of mine, his name is Alejandro Hierro. He reached out to me to tell me that he would help me do this dub translation of the video I showed yesterday of Dr. Jacobo Grinberg. I feel it's very important for people to know, or at least have an idea of his speech and his voice, so you could tell how invested he was in this investigation and explaining the Syntergic Theory. There's no better way to hear it but from the source, and he's the source, and I think that's very important. And also this whole correlation between the theory and the shamanic teachings of Pachita and the shamanic tradition. That is very important too, because shamans understand the theory better than anyone, according to Jacobo. And then there's another Terrence Howard, the actor. He was just in Joe Rogan, and he revealed some stuff that is very intriguing. And there's a connection that I made between the two of them that I will explain a little later. But essentially, he has receipts. He has 97 patents. He has been studying for years of how to create new different ways of propulsion, and he found out that the elements have a tone, as in frequency, and that's something he figured out by studying. And I have a theory that he may have gotten downloads, as we have heard in the UFO community constantly, because you got to listen to the way he speaks and the information he has, and the fact that he has 97 patents. That should be more than enough to give you pause and realize that this is important and serious. And I'll tell you about the correlation between him and Grinberg a little later, because it is a little bit concerning. And yeah, here is Dr. Jacobo Grinberg's dub AI translation right here.
Several clarifications before to begin. You mentioned the shamanic conception of existence, and yes, I want to clarify a bit what this shamanic thing is, or what shamans are. They are the indigenous wise from many places around the world. We have studied these scholars in Mexico, and one of the lineages of these peoples is found in the state of Sonora, the Yaquis of Sonora, and they have something from Carlos Castaneda. And they have a concept on how perception is created. He's fundamentally interested in explaining, or in trying to explain, how images appear, how sounds emerge, how the different levels of reality appear. So in this sense, the synergistic theory is related to this shamanic conception, but does not arise from it. It's related because this theory is also a theoretical attempt to try to explain how perception is created.
Thank you.
The terminology they use is different from that of shamans, yet the conclusions are very similar. The Syntergic Theory states that there's a basic organization of space. This basic organization would be like a matrix. A lattice, a trellis, whose fundamental state is one of total coherence and symmetry. Contemporary physics agrees on this as well. Any alteration in this fundamental matrix of space, a physical instrument detects it as an elementary particle. So the instrument detects something appearing against a stable background. of complete coherence, and the physicists and people who know what the size of the instrument means talk about the appearance of an elementary particle. The idea is that the distortions of the grid, above all complex solutions, are what we can call objects. Syntergic theory states that the human brain can distort the structure of matter in the most complex form known in the universe, and this complex distortion of matter constitutes perceptual reality. In such a way, each of the neural activities constitutes a micro-distortion of the matrix, and since the human brain contains around 10 to 12 billion cells of neuronal elements, each micro-distortion, each alteration of this basic structure of space interacts with each other, forming a complex macro-distortion, which the theory calls the neuronal field. In such a way, the fundamental hypothesis of the Syntergic theory is that perception arises as a result of interaction. From the neuronal field with the space pencil, there are different levels of interaction between the neuronal field and the latissima, and each of these levels constitutes or is associated with or is perceived as a different level of consciousness. For example, there's auditory awareness, visual awareness. There are different types of awarenesses. And the theory claims that each of them is related to the parameters of this interaction between the neuronal field and the lattice. Well, first, I don't understand why someone would take it upon themselves to judge others' understanding.
I mean, it's very strange.
Secondly, in every creation of a theory, for the theory's creator, the experience of creation is an extraordinarily interesting event. When the theory is created and results in the final product, the listener of the theory may consider it as a product from an intellectualization detached from experience. But every theory creation, when this theory is deep, it comes from experience. For example, I mentioned these wise indigenous people who are interested in explaining perception. They have a theory of perception, but this theory of perception comes from their experience.
They
who receive the world in a certain way. To the perception that other people have for being born in another culture, simply because of this. So, from this perception, they create a conception. The interesting thing about conception and any specific attempt to try to understand the perception is that in some way, trying to understand perception puts us at the foundation of any reality. In our era, one of the biggest dangers and one of the greatest pains we are experiencing is the loss of meaning and dispersion. That is, we often find ourselves among people who really don't have much idea about who they are. They lack something, something to help them understand and reach their center, allocation themselves. So the attempt, for example, to explain perception is an attempt to achieve this unification, because we'll be at the foundation of creating any reality and understanding. How is reality created? It helps us to come together, so it's not about intellectualism, especially in the creation process. Because the fine theory, the theory deep, it always comes from experience. I would like to give two pieces of advice, but first something very interesting. Salvador and I witnessed an extraordinary event. I am a scientist I have a laboratory, I study brain activity, brain physiology, and they invited me to meet this woman, Pachita, and her surgeries. And what I saw there, and in the beginning, it contradicted every concept and knowledge I had about reality and what it taught me. This thing I saw that Salvador, because that's what was being described, that I also witnessed that what it taught me is that I can't say what the limit of human capacity is. From that experience, I don't dare to say that humans can't do this, the brain has such intention. Potentiality, it seems, we're within a continuum, very extensive, and we do not know the extremes of this conflict.
Now,
The two pieces of advice. Laughter is one. One is laughter. Laughter is excellent. It's an extraordinary therapeutic measure.
It was a pleasure.
There's even a Taoist meditation technique where the person, and it's very easy to do, the person sits down and smile, try it, smile with your eyes and mouth. That is really increase the commissions. Put in this situation instantly, there are a bunch of messages that our body receives, that our brain receives. First off, all is well. There are hormonal secretions due to the change in physique that produce an extraordinary improvement of all physiological systems. That is one of the more we ridicule ourselves, let's give a good signal to the professionals held here. And the second is observation, which maybe coupled with laughter could be an excellent therapeutic measure.
You can observe
I'll leave you the channel links.
even that which belongs
We
to
think
us.
it cannot be observed. For example, at first we think we cannot observe our brain activity, and yet there is a Buddhist technique
Well, it'll be passion, right?
that teaches
And
one,
for its practical
To observe
machinery.
one's own brain activity. And this is a personal experience.
especially for a neurophysiologist, for an extraordinary, realizing that one has an observation mechanism that allows, for example, to see one's own brain. Not just one's own brain, but also glandular activity. Allowing them to feel their body part by part until achieving a unified body image.
There you have it. And then I'm going to show you the beginning, just the beginning of Terrence Howard's episode with Joe Rogan, which talks about how we are at an impasse with the powers that be because they don't want to change the current system. It's the economic system. It's the energy system. He says, this is not in this clip, but he says that these powers that be are hell-bent on keeping gravity as a source, and just as it is, not meddle with it. So here's Terrence Howard.
The lie.
If you're right, so many people are wrong.
Everyone's wrong. Oh, well, the universe backs me up, and I have the proof of it. You have all these physicists that's saying something different, but none of them have 97 patents. None of them have introduced a new form of flight with unlimited mid-air bonding. None of them have discovered 4 supersymmetrical systems. This is what we've done. This is what the collective is able to do when you put yourself into the divine space. Because that spirit is waiting. It's just like, okay, are you going to make yourself available for it?
So let me ask you this. If I had a magic wand and I allowed you to not just show this, but allowed all of these people that have these opposing ideas, you debate them, you duke it out, you emerge victorious, okay? With this magic wand, and now people go, just listen to Terrence. What do we do?
Well, then once we write new axioms and new postulates based off the real wave conjugations. Now we adjust our understanding of our physics to fit natural phenomena. And then we are in balance with it, and we have to let go of the idea of this currency. We're the only creatures in the known universe that uses currency. They use as an indirect form of payment instead of a direct exchange. We have to get past that point, and that's the hard thing, because this entire world is run on that, and that's where the 1 × 1 = 2 came into its real birth.
Well, the thing about currency is it's connected to technological innovation because of this unlimited potential for growth. And when you have an unlimited potential for growth.
Okay, so to me, this is concerning because the fact that Neil deGrasse Tyson and other scientists that Howard approached are rejecting him so hard, it paints some parallels to what happened to Dr. Grinberg before he disappeared. So I am sounding the alarm right now. I'm sure Mr. Howard already has security in place. I mean, he does have 97 patents, so he knows that they don't like what he's doing. He mentions that on the podcast, but I believe that he also needs help from people to voice what's happening and what he's discovering. And it is important for us to realize that he's one of these scientists that throughout history have been silenced. And he's not silenced right now because of his star power, essentially, because he's famous and he has that going for him. But it's still, Mr. Howard needs to take precautions. I'm sure he's already doing it, but we don't want something similar to happen to him. And with Grinberg, right? Because many people, scientists who have discovered some new stuff, new physics, new everything, many of them died under mysterious circumstances, new forms of combustion and stuff like that. But with Grinberg is different because they needed him still because of how amazing his mind was and how innovative he was. And I hope the same thing doesn't happen to him. I hope his star power can protect him. Going on Rogan was definitely a great move because this has already been seen by millions, and I think we might do a space in the next few days with some people from UFO Twitter, because it is also important for this community that has been looking for answers on new physics and new propulsion and all this stuff. And if Mr. Howard is correct, he has the potential to change the world, just as Jacobo had the potential to do it when he was doing that transfer potential experiment, and they didn't let him. So we're gonna be following this story very closely because it seems very important. Well, there you have it. I would like it if you could help me study and listen to what both people said. Both Jacobo Grinberg, which is the longest video, and Terrence Howard, which is just a teaser of the whole podcast, because I'm only halfway through it. I still haven't finished it, but there are already some important things to note about it, especially the fact that he's reaching out to some of the mainstream scientists and they're not responding well to him. Some of them already ghosted him, and I think that's very interesting and telling too. So if you like what you saw, I would like you to please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. That helps the channel go a long way. And especially if you interact, it tickles the algorithm. So we love that. We're looking for that to keep on happening. And that's going to be it for the video. I'll see you soon. Until the next time. Bye-bye.